Convicted paedophile and disgraced entertainer Rolf Harris has been confirmed as dead at the age of 93. Once one of Australia's most famous celebrity exports, Harris was found guilty in 2014 of a string of indecent assaults against girls and young women between 1968 and 1986.
He was released from prison in 2017 and never apologised to his victims. Joining us now from London is our Europe correspondent Isabella Higgins. Good morning to you, Isabella. What do we know about his death?
Well, Lisa, news of his death had been kept quiet. There had been reports that he had been extremely unwell for the weeks leading up to this, but we've now learned that he died on May 10, almost 2 weeks ago, and that's only because his death certificate was filed in the UK on Tuesday, making that information public. From that death certificate, we learned that the causes of death that were listed were neck cancer, but also fragility caused by old age. Now, after this information was released publicly, there was a brief statement put out by his family through a lawyer. They said simply that he had been laid to rest, that he was surrounded by friends and family, but that they didn't wish to make any further comment at this time. Now, this comes about 6 years after he was released from prison on parole, and for much of that time he had lived a very quiet and reclusive life at his home in Berkshire, west of London. We understand that he was very unwell for much of that and required around-the-clock care much of the time, but he was also trying to avoid public scrutiny, the media glare, after that very high-profile conviction that saw him excluded and disgraced from the industry he had worked in for so long.
And Isabella, he died, as you say, a convicted sex offender. So how is he being remembered in the UK, where he spent all these years?
Lisa, any hope that Rolf Harris might have had of having a career or having a positive legacy died in 2014 when he was found guilty of multiple counts of indecent assault against many girls over several years. This was a high-profile trial. The world's media was there, and the disturbing details of the abuse he inflicted on these girls was etched into the public consciousness. You had British prosecutors describing him as a sinister pervert, as a demon hiding behind a charming character. There were things that can't be unseen or unheard. He was stripped of many of his accolades, awards and honours in the aftermath of that 2014 conviction. And if we look at how he's being remembered here in the UK, where he was a very well-known personality, it's really focusing on the final decade of his life, looking at that trial, looking at the fact that he became a convicted sex offender. There is, of course, some mention of the long career he had before that saw him produce dozens of albums, play to huge crowds around the country. At one stage, even commissioned to paint a portrait of Queen Elizabeth II. But something else that's being reported on extensively, that's being discussed extensively here in the UK, is the fact that he showed very little remorse for his crimes and that he died never publicly apologising to his victims.
Isabella, thank you. And if this story has raised any issues for you, you can get help by calling the National Sexual Assault, Domestic and Family Violence Counselling Service on 1800 RESPECT, which is 1800 737 732.